Bernard Sumner and Stephen Morris, thanks so much for being with us today. Now, let's start with this. You're both taking part in this suicide prevention panel at Britain's Houses of Parliament. What message will you deliver?
Just always that there's a better way, that there's got to be a better way than taking your own life. And I guess we're there to raise public awareness of it and to try and help to increase funding for mental health, particularly young people on this occasion.
Yeah, there is a crisis going on at the moment, particularly with young people, and anything that you can do to stop people taking their own life has got to be a good thing, really.
Well, let's talk about Ian and his battles. Ian Curtis's story. His epilepsy was severe. It required strong medication. I mean, more than once he had seizures on stage during performances. Stephen, speak to the effect the epilepsy had, not just on Ian's day-to-day life, but his overall mood when it comes to mental health.
Well, I mean, it was basically being told that you couldn't do what he'd always wanted to do, really. That was the first thing. He had to sort of lead a normal life, and being in a band isn't a normal life. That was one thing that affected him. But the second thing that affected him even more, I think, was that the drugs that he was put on at the time to control the seizures, which had a really severe effect on his general demeanour.
Initially, when the band started, Ian didn't have epilepsy, or it wasn't showing, and didn't have a history of it. And then one day, it was a gig down here in London, actually, at the Hope and Anchor. One day, on the way back to Manchester, he had a seizure in the car, and that was the start of it all. And I think the drugs that they put people on in those days for epilepsy, which were very strong barbiturates, were like a sledgehammer, you know, and it just hammered him down. And I think the drugs gave him depression more than anything else, because prior to that point, he wasn't the sort of person that suffered from depression as far as we knew, I don't think.
No, it did become more withdrawn.
Before Ian's death, I was reading there was one music writer, John Bush of All Music, and he said this, quote, he said of Joy Division, "It became the first band in the post-punk movement by emphasising not anger and energy but mood and expression, pointing ahead to the rise of melancholy alternative music in the 80s. Bernard, did Ian's writing reflect his real-life torment?
Well, it's very strange, but we never really listened to his lyrics until after he died, because we all sort of did our own thing. Like, Steve played the drums and got on with it. I played the guitar and got on with it. And we were all on our little pedestals doing our own thing. It was only after Ian died that we really listened to his lyrics. Of course, we did hear his lyrics and thought they were kind of deep and strange, but it was after he died that we thought, well, maybe, you know, these lyrics are more serious than we thought they were, and you know, delved into it.
We would go on as though nothing was wrong. Eyes on his face, we remained all alone. Staying in the same place, just staying at the time. Touching from a distance, further all the time.
I think the music of Joy Division and Early New Order was a bit of a reaction against what we were hearing on the radio, which was all kind of sugar pop. And as teenagers, we didn't feel like what we were hearing on the radio represented us and the way we thought and the way most other kids at school thought, because it wasn't real, you know.
Yeah,
it was fake emotion.
Yeah, and to that point, Stephen, I'm going to pick up on something Bernard said. I mean, you were quoted in an article to that very point, expressing regret that, quote, nobody had realised during Curtis's life the distress he was in, even though it was evident in his lyrics. And then a quote I saw was about you reading those lyrics years later, and in your words, quote, "Effing hell, how did I miss this?" Yeah. Looking back, were there any early signs about his state of mind?
Not really noticed. I mean, Ian's lyrics were great. You were very lucky to have someone who wrote such fantastic lyrics, but he thought, oh, it's really clever. He's writing about somebody else. It's great how he can get in the mind of another person. And then after his death, you'd look at it and think, oh, it was all about him.
The thing was that there was two personas. There was Ian that hung out with us and was a good laugh and had lots and lots of fun with, just like the rest of us did. And then there was the persona that was expressed through his lyrics, and they were, you know, poles apart. Really, the two didn't add up, and that's what was confusing.
It was interesting too, because I know that I'm not sure whether it was Bernard or Stephen. One of you said that Ian's major flaw was that he always wanted to please you. He would say he was all right when he wasn't, and that's a problem with many who have mental health issues, isn't it? Not speaking up or seeking help or feeling that they can't or shouldn't.
Yeah, particularly in the 70s, there was a sort of stigma that you didn't want to admit there was anything wrong with you. You were being really macho and say, are you all right? You know, because you looked a bit shaky or whatever. And he said, no, I'm fine. And you wouldn't, it was like, it was a sign of weakness to say there was something wrong with you. When really, particularly with young men, you should be able to talk about issues like that, which is one of the big things about mental health these days. Young people are becoming more aware of it, and they do talk about it more. But back in the bad old days of the 70s, it was a sign of weakness, I think.
I don't think we were as educated about mental health as we are nowadays. You know, and that's part of the reason why we're down here, to help educate particularly young people more about various conditions, and that it's okay to talk about it. It's cool to talk about it amongst your friends. Yeah. It's cool to seek help. If you need help, get help. It's no stigma involved.
No.
Absolutely. I mean, suicide, of course, is a global problem, but I mean, there does seem to be way too many in the music industry. And, you know, there's studies suggesting that those in the business suffer psychological distress far above average rates. Would you agree with that? And if so, what are the reasons?
Well, maybe that's one of the reasons they become musicians, maybe that's one of the motivating factors. They want to become a musician so they can express through music what they can't say in words. I don't know, but you've got to be a bit of an outsider to become the sort of musicians that we are, certainly, you know. So maybe there's a bit of that, you know, it's the other way around. You don't have mental issues because you're a musician. You become a musician because you've got mental issues in some cases, yeah.
That's a really interesting take. Makes sense in many ways. Ian was remarkable in many ways. He was incredibly intelligent. He didn't go to university, but he really excelled at high school academically. Bernard, you first met Ian, I think, in the mid-70s. What was he like in those early days?
Energetic, positive, wanted to be in a group that was really successful. He always said he wanted to be in a group that was big, but no bigger than the Kinks, the band The Kinks, which I think kind of maybe happened, you know. But he was like an arrow flying towards a target, and the target was to make a mark musically, which he did. Yeah. I mean, he went to the same school as you, didn't he, Steve?
He did, yeah.
Did you know him at school?
No. It was weird. We're in the same building, and he was on one floor and I was on the other floor, and we never met. I thought I was the only kid in that school who liked the Velvet Underground, and he probably thought the same. Yeah, we never met.
That's remarkable. I mean, he was literally a poet. I mean, he wrote poetry back in those days in particular. I think in high school he was doing that. You know, he was an artist. I mean, what do you see as his legacy, both as a musician, but also in terms of what his struggle and ultimate death can teach us?
Oh, gosh. Well, he was certainly a writer. I think that if he hadn't become a musician, he would have become a writer. And in fact, he did say he wanted to do that once instead of being a musician. When it all got too much for him, and because of his illness, he did professed the opinion that he wanted to, you know, start writing instead of doing music. And at rehearsals, you know, we would write all the music. Ian didn't write the music. We'd write the music, and then Ian would pull out a box of pre-written lyrics, and he'd just pull a sheet out. And he said, "We'll use this for this one." And yeah, he definitely had a talent. His legacy, what would you say his legacy was, Steve?
Well, I think his legacy is
Us.
Well,
Us.
apart from us, obviously, is when you get people come up to you and say, "I just want to thank you thank Joy Division for the music because it's really helped me through some tough times," and it says something that there must be something in the music and the lyrics that people could identify with, and I think that's a really good thing.
New Order's debut single, I think it was the debut single, was the Joy Division song Ceremony, which was, of course, co-written by Ian. Several New Order songs later played tribute to or made reference to Ian. You guys are still going after 4 decades, which is unbelievable and fantastic. Does Ian still play a part in your music or your lives or what the band is today?
Maybe DNA-wise, but not consciously. Yeah, at the beginning there was a crossover. Like you say, Ceremony. We wrote 2 songs, I think, 2 weeks before Ian died to try and heal him through music. And one was Ceremony and the other was In a Lonely Place. Now, In a Lonely Place
Wasn't
isn't
that
the sort
successful?
of thing that would cheer you up. It's a really down song. But Ceremony was our attempt to try and get him involved in the band and involved in music and remind him of what possibly a great future he had. Unfortunately, it didn't work. But it was an honour and a pleasure for us to still continue playing that song to this day. Yeah.
Bernard Sumner and Stephen Morris, fantastic to talk to you. As I was saying before the interview, I grew up with your music and a big fan, an important message at this time on mental health. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you making the time.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.